You're listening to American Grit, America's raw and uncensored podcast. My name's Tim Jensen. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and co-owner of Grunt Style Apparel. And we're here to talk about all the bullshit mainstream media won't touch with a stick by sharing information that directly impacts our community, our well-being, and our destiny as Americans. All right, everybody, welcome back to another American Grit with Tim Jensen. I have with us today two very special gentlemen, and their story is quite incredible. In fact, there is a book about it that is being released October 21st, 2022. I'm excited for it. And we have the authors with us today, Ed Ford and Alan Chiasson. And welcome to the show, my friends.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Now, Postcards Through Hell. Tell me a little bit about it. What is the book? And before we get into a little bit about who you guys are, like paint me the situation. Well, what is this book? What are we talking about?
We're talking about covers about 2009 to 2012. That period in Afghanistan, we were security contractors working for SOC, and we were contracted to help deliver and protect the U.S. mail as we delivered the mail through RC East in Afghanistan. We do our drops at Ghazni, Fob Fenty, Gardez, Shank. Those are our main drop sites. We also had another client we worked for, and we did secure drops for them all over the country. I mean, went all the way out to Herat,
Tarragundi.
Yeah, Tarragundi, up to Mazar Sharif and Kunduz. Kandahar, Lashkar.
Boy, shit, man.
Yeah. You name it, we were there. Right?
Sounds like all shitholes.
Yeah, I know.
Helmand Province.
Skin and Organy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a real shit run. We lost a few guys on that one.
Yeah. So the modern Pony Express, if you will.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about on the show, different military experiences. You guys are both military veterans.
Yes.
Navy and Marine Corps.
Yes.
Doc, you were the
Hospital Corpsman.
Hospital Corpsman, blue side, right?
Uh-huh.
Fantastic. And my friend over here, Mr. Ed Ford, former Marine.
Yeah, I did infantry, reconnaissance. Actually retired out of First Force in 2004.
All right.
Yeah, it was a fun time. I mean, I started off in the infantry, of course, but then transitioned into Second Force. Did a few deployments there. Had a blast as a team leader. Great learning experience. And then did I&I duty in New Mexico. Then I went to 1st Recon Battalion, picked up a platoon as a platoon sergeant, which was great because then you get to mold all those little guys. You get like a fresh ball of clay and you get to mold it.
Sure.
And then, but after my time as a platoon sergeant, they stuck me up in the S3 and I was like,
Yeah.
So then, but I heard they needed some guys over at First Force, so I put in my paperwork and I was able to get one more deployment in with a real good platoon.
You should tell them how you got robbed on that embassy deal.
Oh, yeah. When I was at Second Force, we did Desert Storm, and we were part of the platoon that took down the U.S. Embassy.
Oh, really?
40 hours before the Army's big CNN show.
Right.
Yeah,
we're here, guys.
Yeah, I got some photos of that, too. I'll pull those up and share them with you guys. But it was, we were there. The Army kicked us out. They actually had a helicopter follow us out of the city.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, make sure we were out. And I
Come
guess
on.
as soon as we passed that certain line, the Army flew in their Chinooks.
Yeah.
Kind of ironic, too, because they did like a whole lot of damage to the place. And we're worried about we're like, man, I hope we cleaned it up good enough.
Right. Leave it better than you found it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, you guys were both military services and then went into private contracting, right?
Yes.
And, this was not something, new, right? At the time period, like, this 20-year war really brought contracting, back to the forefront of military or of services, right?
Well, back in 03, 04 is when it was just starting to kick back up.
Yeah.
That's sometimes they refer to that as the golden age, because that's when, like, if you had the skill set, you were making $1,000 a day.
Sure. Yeah.
No questions asked. Now it's, but I mean, yeah, those were the gold rush days. like 2003 to like 2005, and then competitive bids started coming in, and people were like, "All right, we got to start watching the money now."
Right.
Yeah, CPA busted Custer Battles on all that stuff, and so they started putting everybody under a microscope, and then they were able to regulate things through the Department of State and make sure vetting was done properly and all kinds of stuff. So it was interesting because when I got over to Iraq, I had applied as a international police liaison officer.
Mm-hmm.
I had met some guys. I did 2 deployments at Hurricane Katrina, and I met some Blackwater guys that were telling me that medics were really needed in Iraq. And so when I applied, I went the IPLO route, but when I got over there, he said, "Oh, you're a medic. You're going to go over to PSD." I didn't know shit about PSD.
Right.
So it was on the job training from there. And that's when I met Ed.
Fantastic. Now, what attracted you guys to private contracting? Besides the money and the opportunity, because when I frame it this way, because when I was in service, it wasn't very popular, right? I was at Iraq 0405, and we were coming across contractors a lot, and it wasn't very popular in the services at the time to get into the private contracting once your time was up. What was the attraction for you?
You got to work with a lot of the same bunch of guys, your same mindset. You're doing a lot of the same type of work.
Yeah.
It's high risk. But you cut out like a lot, like the Marine Corps, I mean, you got all that. Sometimes you got a few layers of bullshit and you're just like, oh, really? We really got to do that?
Right.
So you cut all that out. And plus, plus the rotations were nice. You weren't going over there for 6 months or a year. You were going there 3 months on, 1 month off, which was nice.
That was nice, the rotation.
Yeah. So you got to get home a lot more. I think mostly though was just, staying in with that same group of guys.
Yeah.
And you were making that extra money.
Yeah.
But you had that same group of guys with that same mindset.
Yeah. Which
was nice.
I wanted to train. I spent 10 years on SWAT with local PDs. And when they talked about IPLOs, it's not the kind of training that I had envisioned in terms of tactics and things of that nature. It was more like how to set up checkpoints, how to do search and seizures and things like that. But when I got over there and they said, okay, you're going to go over to PSD, it was kind of nice. I was scared to death because I didn't know anything about PSD, but they train you up pretty well. That when I met Ed, he was with Crow Crucible, and they were contracted to provide training for the Shark teams, and the Shark teams did all of the transportation of VIPs and CEOs and things from the hotels to different venues throughout Afghanistan or throughout Iraq. So
and you served more in the Iraq theater.
I spent 5 years there.
5 years, and you were mostly in Afghanistan.
Yes,
correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have much experience in Afghanistan, but my brothers do, and they don't like it very much at all.
No.
They don't like talking about it.
Different animal, totally different. We I think everything that we did. I mean, Ed is part of the Shark teams as well. Even though they trained, they were responsible for riding out with us and doing evaluations and
augmenting from time to time,
sure,
positions and whatnot. But when he went over to Afghanistan, we never saw any bad guys in Iraq. It was, you just drive and you get hit with an EFP and you deal with the situation and you go from there. But in Afghanistan, you were face to face with the enemy.
Yeah.
It was
they would stand and fight. I mean, as Chris said one time, when my ATL, I ended up losing a little bit later.
Today's the anniversary of his death,
and
12 years ago.
He was like, we're the adversary. I was like, oh yeah,
we're the adversary.
Yeah.
Well, they've been fighting for millennia, so that is very true.
I know.
Right. Now, how did you two meet?
I was writing an article for Texas Tactical Police Officers Association. They have a magazine called Command Magazine, and I was researching TEMS in the red zone, or tactical emergency medicine in the red zone, and EFPs was something new to me. I mean, roadside bombs and IEDs and VBIEDs and things like that were commonplace, but EFPs were a totally different type of a bomb. It's a explosively formed projectile or shape charge that can defeat armor up to 7 inches thick. And, it comes out at around 20,000 feet per second, and I didn't know anything about it, so I asked Ed for for his advice, and I actually credited him in the article. So your name is
Nice.
on the bottom of that page, by the way. They published it, and from there we just became friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Now, I'm going to get off subject, EFPs, man. Like, we didn't see, I left Iraq in April 2005, right? So that technology was just starting to hit the streets,
yep.
right? And with the way they were shaping it up for the conversation amongst all the Marines was like, holy shit, there's this new, thing on the battlefield that
It's a killer.
it's going to destroy everything,
It's
right?
Oh,
a
yeah.
killer.
And we're still operating in light, very light armored Humvees that didn't get it was probably from the initial assault. They were just refitted,
Yeah.
right, with heavier armor, right?
Yeah, up
Yeah,
on
yeah, hanging
right?
steel plates off the side and stuff.
Meat wagons
Those guys rolled in thin skins.
Yeah.
A lot of times. We had an SD element on the Shark teams that would actually go out and recon the route prior to us going, and then they'd be like a kilometer or two ahead, and then they'd call out threats for us. But EFPs, it wouldn't matter if you had armor or not. It was just, and it's interesting because they changed their TTPs quite a bit. There was a period of time towards the end of, let's say 2008, when there was a shortage, I won't say of copper, but maybe Border Patrol from Iran had ceased all of the copper that was coming in from Iran, and they started making EFPs out of different types of steel. But you could always tell if it came from Iran because it'd leave that copper imprint
Yeah.
Oh,
all over
okay.
the vehicle.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've got some really cool pictures too.
Wow.
One
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, Iran. Man, we should have solved that problem. we had a chance.
Simple solution, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. So you guys ended up in Afghanistan at the same time, right? Tell us,
Yes.
how did you guys get connected there, and what put you guys on the road, literally the ring road?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I got over there first. I ended up, I was a site security down and working with the Blackwater guys down in Camp Chapman. And then that program closed, so I was transitioning over to the convoy, the mobile teams. Then one day, one of the other teams went out on the Organese skin run, and they got hit. They got hit bad, and they didn't lose anybody, but a couple of the guys got injured, and they had to fight their way out of it. And when they finally got the skin, even the client that was there was like, wow, I'm surprised you guys are alive. And then-
They have that on satellite imagery as well.
and so what happened was after that, we sat down, everybody sat down, we were like, we need a medic. Who knows a good medic? And I just threw Al's name into the hat real quick. I was like, I probably should have run this by him first, but he could always quit, I guess. We got Al over there, and yeah, after that, we just started putting together the teams, and Al was heading up the whole medical portion of it.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we cross-train, and we were all getting good at medical, real good at it. And, we were getting Al good at like, hey, you're not going to be just the doc here.
Right.
These are going to days you're going to have to be running point and being a navigator. You have to come into your own here. So, matter of fact, that was on the Churagundi run, wasn't it?
No, it was prior to that because we did Kandahar and they split our team up.
Yeah.
that was a nightmare for me. I was working for SOC at the same time, but in Iraq, and my job there was to fill in for medics that were going on leave. So they would jump me from different FOB to different FOBs. And when they got hit in Afghanistan, they called and said, "Hey, man, you want to go up to Afghanistan?" I said, "Yeah, sure." I wanted to go only because Ed and Mike Hardy was up there, and I knew them. So, but when I got there was nobody at the airport to pick me up. I was just like, "What the fuck, man?"
So contracting is like the military.
Had to find my own way to the compound, and I was like fucking scared to death, man. I was like, "What do you do here?"
Yeah.
And I met some NGO that was working for Parsa that we ended up using as a safe haven later on. And we shared a taxi, and then she said, "Well, you're in the Shah Ani district. Just have them take over there." We were driving up and down the streets, and I finally saw a guy in a SOC uniform. I said, "Turn right here."
Right.
By then, it was. I think I ran up to $40 or something like that on the fee, and I just paid the guy and didn't tip him. I'm fucking glad to be alive.
Oh yeah, yeah. Talking about the contracting aspect of it all, one thing I've always been interested about and knowing, right, as a Marine, right, is like what were the TTPs that of the contractor during those time periods? Let's call it like 2004, 2008, right?
I mean, a lot of it, you weren't offensive in nature. You were reactive and defensive in nature. Everything was going to be based off of getting off the X. You weren't going to assault through unless you really, really had to break the ambush. Other than that, if you could drive off, push through and drive off, that's what you did.
Yeah.
If you had to fight your way off the X and exfil a vehicle that got hit and remove your casualties, that's what you did.
Yeah.
Very rarely did you actually stay and fight it out. I think one time was with Shock 3 when they got hit in right outside of Taji. They blew the EFP and they took down the trail vehicle, and they actually had to stop, come back, and they had to suppress the ambush.
Right.
They had to break. They had to suppress the ambush, and then they had to exfil the vehicle. And then these guys were hurt. Some of these guys were hurt. They lost 2 on that one. One of them was one of my guys. He was an evaluator.
Yeah.
And it's probably from where they say he was sitting out in that EFP blue, they probably said the last thing he probably saw was a bright flash of light. And then that's it, lights out.
Yeah.
It changed a little bit after 2005 or 2009 when the SOFA agreement came out and the military pulls out of Iraq. The Iraqi army and the police had changed their posture, and they took things. We used to carry like 12 mags, flashbangs, smoke, anything with the word grenade, they took away from us. They took our push bars off the trucks. We were limited to 3 magazines of ammo for the M4, and then 2 mags for the Beretta or Glock if you were working for SOC. Glock for SOC. And so it made a huge difference. We had gone through a checkpoint. A lot of times when you go through checkpoints, you kind of like give the police at the checkpoint some water or even some bullets because ammo was hard for them to come by. And that would kind of pave our way through the checkpoint without having to stop. And then one time we had a box of bullets that we had given to them, and they tried to arrest the team because we had 50 rounds of ammo over the allotted amount. And I was just going, and they take everything, your radio, your vehicles, all your equipment, and you're kind of screwed. So then the embassy comes in and bails you out.
Right.
So
that's incredible.
It was different. Then you go to Afghanistan and it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Welcome to the real world. It made Iraq look like Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Yeah. I mean, different environments, different culture. Right?
Yeah. Afghanistan was more like the Wild West meets the Sopranos. I mean, seriously. I mean, that's what it was like.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
I mean, you know, sometimes you're rolling up on a checkpoint. You know, it's a fake checkpoint, but you're like, all right, let's go ahead and pay our highway tax, and then we'll go ahead and get out. We'll get through this.
Right. Was there any moments like where you come up on a fake checkpoint, you're like, oh, we're gonna have to fight our way out of this?
No, well, you know what? I mean, usually we'd either turn around if we didn't like it, or
push through it.
Yeah, push through it. Or just like, just keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
Don't look at them; they won't look at us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now on these big runs, like, what is it? A convoy element that you're operating? How many vehicles in a column?
Usually, you had at least 3 gun trucks, and then you always had at least about 3 supply trucks. So, what had happened? We'd run our lead gun truck. That was the navigator. Then our mid, usually the team leader. That was where I was at. Then you'd put your cargo vehicles, and then your trail vehicle, which usually had the dock in it.
Yeah.
And that's once we got all our vehicles, and that's how we established that SOP. So that way, you'd always have your interpreter up in that very lead vehicle.
Right.
So they talk your way through it. Once again, the navigator up there, you always had your op fund, so he always had a couple grand on him.
Sure.
Just for once again, highway tax.
Let me ask this question: how accurate were your maps? Were you operating off of 1980s maps like we were?
Actually, they were pretty up to date.
Because you got to remember, we were mostly along the ring road and with GPS.
It was a military grid reference system, which made it a lot easier than lat long for sure.
Yeah,
the maps were pretty good. I actually took their maps. one of the guys on the team was a Navy SEAL. He had a high clearance, and he went to the B dock at Bagram, and they gave us all of the medical locations throughout that route, and I was able to put their level of care on each of those
nice.
those points. And so when the medic, if it wasn't me and somebody else, they could click on that and it would bring up an advance, and it would say what the capabilities of their FST was, or whether there was a combat surgical hospital close by, whether they had medevac capabilities. But there was a section in Ghazni that there was no air or medevac capability whatsoever, and that was like a red line through that part, and that's where we had most of our contacts. When there was no military.
It's like it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of the bigger frustrations that you had with contracting in general?
Believe it or not, I mean, the politics, because this is a business now, right?
Yeah.
Business. Corporate wants to make their money.
Sure.
They want to be in the black. So you're coming up with ideas. Hey, why don't we get this gear, this equipment, make things a little safer for us? And they're looking at the bottom line like, no.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you straight up, don't like it, leave. I got 5 resumes I'm looking at right now that I can replace you with. And you're just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So that was frustrating, dealing with the politics of, once again, you're not under the military. So like the local government, they're like, we can't pick on the Marines or the Army, but we can pick on these guys.
Right. And you guys were not getting any military support.
Very limited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we rolled with Cobras or Apaches overhead.
Right.
Every once in a while, if everything lined up correctly, we'd be able to coordinate it. And then you'd meet with the unit commander you're talking with on the phone, shake his hand, and they'd help you out. If nothing else, they'd keep the Apaches overhead. All right, you see these trucks here? Just keep an eye on them.
Yeah. And all that was happening from gentlemen and or people on the ground, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It wasn't happening from the suits back in
No.
right?
No.
We actually we black market purchased PKMs and Glocks from a guy out of Pakistan, and those weapons failed miserably. We were test firing those at Moorhead, and then I remember saying, "Hey, can we get our money back on that?" And I know, I think it was Ryan Bennett that said that the guy that sold us the guns ended up getting killed. I guess he ripped somebody off. Ripped
ripped off somebody else.
Right.
So we ended up having to deal with that. Then I think we were making runs in the up armors before we got the gun trucks.
Okay.
And when those came in, it just changed the picture totally.
Yeah.
We were running level 7 armor, gun trucks, Ford F550s.
Nice.
That had gun turrets up top,
Yeah.
blast doors. It didn't have any ports, so you're not going to roll your window down to shoot, but you open your door
Yeah.
if the case arised. But
The biggest, the Achilles heel on those trucks, though, was that flat bottom. And once the Taliban found out about that, they knew just to wait until they rolled over, and it was it was 100% casualties.
Really?
Just
Tim,
because all that. It all
Pressure,
yeah.
when you were talking about TTPs, we started after we got the mail run, because we were running supply convoys too. We were running fuel, food, ammo to ODA sites, and when they tagged on military or tagged on the post office, we started running more cargo trucks, and that gave us to be time, place, predictable, the opportunity to change up the convoy. So he was talking about running 2 gun trucks and a couple of cargo trucks, and then the trail. We could, on the next mission, we would run a gun truck, 2 cargo trucks, a center gun truck, 2 more cargo trucks, or we could change up any number of ways. So if they were, if they're going to try to hit us with a bomb or something like that, they wouldn't know exactly our configuration.
Sure.
But then it got really bad because one of the guys that was working on your team was kind of playing ball for the other side and would let them know.
Yeah, that's what happened. He had family. Whenever they did the Shank run, he was from the Logar province, and he had cousins that were Taliban. And so what happened was we figured it out real quick because the other gunners were like, "Hey, as soon as we're rolling out, he's making phone calls." So what happened was we'd roll out, we'd let him make his phone call. What he was doing, he was telling them, "Hey, I'm going to be in the last gun truck, or I'm going to be in the middle gun truck." So what happened was we took his phone from him, patted him down, searched him. we put him up in the lead gun truck.
Sure.
And then after a couple times of that, he was probably complaining to his cousin, "You guys are shooting me."
Right.
But he ended up quitting after that. After we did that to him about 2 or 3 times, and he was like, "I'm out."
Yeah.
So that became a self-correcting problem, really.
Yeah. The level of corruption.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's the other frustrating. You just got to deal with all that corruption. And
did you see a lot of it inside of the organization itself when it was other individuals skimming or?
Yeah, because you got to realize in order for SOC to do business over there, any American company to do over there, they had to have an Afghan counterpart.
Oh, really?
So we were SOC, but we were also under SOC Afghanistan, which is run by Afghans. And that was a bit shady right there.
They seem like respectable people.
We had a colonel on the payroll, and he was related to Wally Karzai, Karzai's brother.
Oh, okay.
And so he had a relationship with him.
Spreading the wealth.
Pretty much. But we paid additional money for, like, say, when we wanted to bring weapons in or get our security operations license renewed or our arming authority taken care of, you pay some extra money to move it up to the top of the pile. But if this guy says, okay, it's going to cost you like 20 grand, how much of that 20,000 is going to moving that paperwork to the top?
Yeah.
What is the colonel skimming off the top? Plus the counter intel and OPSEC that we never kept them in the loop in terms of our runs, or how we made our runs, when we made our runs, or whatever the case may be. They might have found out information. We never talked to any of the Afghan counterparts. It was just a necessary evil in order to get business done.
Yeah. We saw similar things, and when we were in Iraq, the more of those hasty ambushes were coming because when we're working side by side with the ING, they don't have that time to react and plan. Mm-hmm. All they know is we're going out on patrol today, and we're going to drive through this area, right? And
and one phone call, all right, hey, set up around this village.
Right, exactly. Yes, quite crazy. So with the contracting, you start out doing supply runs, moved into the postal side, and you're making these runs around. How long would it take to complete a trip on the ring road?
Oh shoot! You could go. We went from Herat down to Kandahar and back up to Kabul, and it took about 24 hours.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I mean, you're just like, by the time you're hitting Camp Airborne, just south of Kabul, you're all wired out on caffeine. Red Bull.
I overdosed on Red Bull.
Cigarettes and beef jerky, and you're just like, oh yeah, it was horrible.
They call it the 1,000-kilometer club.
Yeah.
So there's very, very few teams that actually made that run from nonstop from one end to the other. And so they got the 1,000-kilometer club.
You get like a what?
Nothing. Just bragging rights.
Yeah, just bragging rights.
Piece of paper. Come on, that's garbage.
In Iraq, when you talk about having to deal with local nationals and stuff, I think that the overall objective in Iraq was to stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
You wanted to put money back into the economy, but in Afghanistan, the money's not going to the economy. It's just going to whoever the most evil guy was.
Who was in charge.
Yeah, then it's the tribalism, right? I think the economy of the two places, right, and flipped on each other. I think your comment of it being a mob run environment in Afghanistan is absolutely correct, right? Where Iraq was those little mobs kind of were opportunists.
Yeah.
They weren't really running the show, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody in Iraq really just wanted to be left the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much.
And it was all of the quote unquote Arabs that were coming into the country, stirring up the fight.
Yeah.
Coming from Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, all these different ring countries. And that, so it's a completely different conversation. Now, how did you guys, we know how you met. We get to hear how you guys were operating. What made you guys want to put this book together?
Mike Hardy.
Yeah. I mean, it started off with one of our other guys, Mike Hardy. I mean, he was trying to get a break into acting, I think.
He was a security guard for some movie sets, and he met one of the writers named Michael Sokol that was interested in doing a series. And it never really came to fruition. The guy wrote a couple episodes, but there's a huge difference in writing something that's based on a true story versus an actual true story,
Right.
where you've got a little bit of latitude to add, fiction
Yeah.
and
A little bit of color.
kind of spruce it up again or whatever. I think they wanted to write an episode where we took Wendy Schauman on a run. And she gets hit and she fights, and I'm just going, that's not happening.
No,
we're not going to do that. So we kind of broke away from that, and it sat dormant for a while. And then
just January 2017, I was like, New Year resolution, I'm going to get this done. And then I was like, I knew Al had already, he was a published writer. I was like, and we started talking. Then I got another buddy, Colin Heaton. He's a military historian. He's a published author. He's like, all right, man, here's what's going to happen. He's telling me, you're looking at least 5 to 10 years. I mean,
it was
his first
10
book.
years to put a book together.
Yeah, it took him 7 years for his first book. He wrote it about General Livingston
Okay.
when he was a company commander in Vietnam, and for his Medal of Honor, the Medal of Honor fight that he was in.
Yeah, he actually wrote the foreword in our book.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So
And what happened was he was telling me, and I was like, all right, but 2017 is when we started. 2022, 5 years.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I mean, that's what it took.
What were some of the challenges that you had to get through?
Oh,
we don't know how to fucking write.
You're talking about knuckle draggers trying to,
This is how I wrote. Like
knuckle
two
draggers and
fingers,
crayon
man.
eaters
Like,
trying to write a
Boys,
book.
this book is full of run-on sentences and vulgarity.
Oh yeah.
He had a memoir, and I had a journal. Whatever it could be semantics, but the terminology. Mine was from the time I went to Iraq to when I ended up at the end of mission in Afghanistan, and he had everything that he was keeping with mission specs, op orders, after action reports, and all that stuff. And we just kind of put the two together and created this timeline.
That's great.
And then Colin sent out a beta script to about 20 people, and we got 12 positive reviews right off the bat. And then we got one nasty review from Scott Husing, who's the best-selling author of the book Echo and Ramadi.
Yeah.
And he tore us a new ass. It was just like, hey, this story needs to be told, but you got to polish it up.
Yeah,
So
he's like, what is this?
yeah. No, I was telling JD we had to take out like 152 cuss words.
But I mean, Scott was the guy. He told you what you needed to hear, not what you wanted to hear. And I was like,
The success of this book is based on his recommendations.
Yeah.
He turned us on to his editor.
That's great.
And then Sylvia Mendoza, and she was so cool. She offered a lot of points that we weren't even aware of. One, I had to take a couple of creative writing classes, just to figure out how to do shit. And then she said something about not having any female perspective. And I'm looking at Ed and I'm going, there are no women on the contract. What the hell are you talking about? But we never thought about it. What did your wife say when you were gone? What about the mothers of the guys that were killed? How did they feel after they were notified? I was just going, wow, I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
So we ended up conducting like another 22 interviews, and we created a chapter calling all wives.
Oh, that's great.
And that was probably the most painstaking because
some of us had ex-wives, and so you know how that went. And first time Sylvia read it, she's like, "Do you really want to get sued?"
This is not anything of what I remember.
no.
So it took a lot of polishing on that chapter.
Yeah,
but it was. I think that's actually a well-received chapter.
Yeah. Now, did you guys have the experience of getting doors closed on you? And if so, what did you guys do when that happened?
Well, through the traditional publishing route, we did.
It's like
we're not known authors, I think Regnery was the first one that took a look at it, and they liked the story. They were interested, but I think they had a cap on certain genres of books, like novels and nonfiction or whatever, and they had already reached their cap for the year. Then we went into self-publishing, and that was really bad because of the fact that they wanted more money. And we'd already dropped about $12,000 into the book.
Yeah.
And then we finally found a publisher, Moonshine Cove Publishing LLC. Gene Robinson agreed to take on the project at no cost, so we signed with him.
Yeah. But
and that took another 3 years.
Yeah.
Shit. Of just trying to market.
Yeah.
Or trying to find a publisher.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
really
it-
hard.
yeah.
Everything it's interesting because one, you got to learn how to write the book.
Yeah.
Then you got to learn how to write a proposal. Then you got to learn how to get a publisher and write a query
Marketing,
letter.
the
And it was just
marketing
like,
too,
God
right.
almighty, the research is endless.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
For
marketing
you
is
up
a
and coming
constant-
authors.
the marketing is a constant battle.
Yeah. It's
Oh yeah, I'm sure you guys know
it's
that.
it's the droll of it all, right?
Yeah.
If you let off the throttle there, man, like everything goes to shit. Absolutely. Now we were talking a little bit about reviews of the book, right?
Oh, shit, yeah.
And there was
Real
a
happy.
review that spoke a little bit of the term mercenary versus contractor.
Yeah.
What are you guys' feelings on that?
I don't like the term mercenary. I prefer the term either contractor or security specialist.
Yeah.
I mean, mercenary. I mean, that you're thinking of like
Executive
1960s
outcomes. Yeah.
executive outcomes, Sandline.
Yeah.
That's not who we were. We were security specialists. I like to keep it like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
always look at mercenaries as offensive in nature.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
defensive.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But the thing about being lumped up as a security contractor is now you're with KBR guys that are cooking food in some
Sure.
kind of a fob, and they're not going outside the wire, It's and soldiers for hire are kind of in line with mercenaries, but that's probably a better term for the stuff that we did because we're
The old soldier of fortune.
Soldier of Fortune. Yeah, that's a great one.
That's
I
a great
remember the magazine.
Yeah,
I used to read that all the time. Hell.
I was a member.
Oh, no shit.
Subscriber, really.
Cool.
Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. But I can, I think for me, for a long period of time, I had a really poor interaction with some Blackwater guys in 0405.
Oh yeah, that was because they were expanding so a lot of these companies were expanding so fast.
Yeah.
It was all about boots on deck.
Yeah.
So the quality control slipped.
Yeah.
But because before 9/11, that whole contracting world was very closed. I was talking to guys that were like, they were working Kosovo and Serbia as security details there for the war crimes judges.
Right.
It was a very close knit. Everybody knew everybody else, and it was almost like a very close knit, almost elite, like security specialists.
Yeah.
Everybody knew their job.
They hired skills.
They hired skills, but that didn't mean you stepped right off into a leadership billet. You were in the back seat watching us. You were watching your sector.
Right.
It didn't matter how many years you had in SF or in recon or how many years you were a Navy SEAL. Everybody started off the same. But
Right.
then when all these programs started to expand, that's how I picked up a team so quick over in Afghanistan. It was like, oh, long range teams. Yeah, you were force recon. You're a team leader. I was like, okay, you're getting a pay
You're a
raise.
team leader until you die.
Yeah.
Who's the next guy?
Yeah. And I did that for a year. We built up our team and we trained our teams, and then we push out and move our clients.
Yeah.
All from the embassy, which was really a good learning curve for me.
Oh yeah, that's a master's education.
Yeah, and then after that, I went to Crucible to teach the PSD, the stuff I did for a year, and that was an eye opener too because Afghanistan in 04, 05 wasn't that hot, but yet Iraq was picking up, and that's where I ended up at, Iraq. And stuff, we had to modify a lot of what we were teaching. We had to actually modify based off of the threat on the ground.
Yeah.
And
It was all reactive.
we were pretty much all reactive.
It was different for me because some of the contracts were like DGI, Bearing Point in Iraq.
Yeah.
Required security clearance, and the most I could get as a Canadian was medium risk public trust. And so they said, well, you can't. The medic has to be an American citizen, and I'm not. So, but you can stay working here, but you'll be in the back as a shooter, And so now you're running the same missions under the same threat, making less money, but taking the same risks.
Yeah.
And I was just going, okay.
And that happened to you a lot.
Twice it actually
Yeah.
happened to me. When I was with Ed, he would go on leave, and then I'd go to the bathroom and shit my pants, because then now I got a team leader that's putting me in the front of the truck
Right.
instead of at the back of the truck. And I'm going, okay, I'm not a navigator, you know. So you have to learn that shit like right off the cuff.
Yeah.
Comms was a big thing. And so what I did, I told him, I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, the best thing you can do is train everybody. Bring them up to combat lifesaver speed. If something happens to you, then you know that somebody's going to be able to take care of you. And the cool thing about me teaching guys is I knew I was teaching them the right way.
Right.
And so I felt a lot more comfortable. And then it was like that first run, you have to, you know, get it out, get the monkey off your back, so to speak. And then you were good to go after that. So I was like,
yeah.
Then I talked to the team leader. I said, fuck, you put me up front for me. Put me in the middle or in the back.
I'm one of your best assets, man.
Ass being the operative word.
Now, what can people expect from reading the book, Postcards Through Hell?
Oh, shit, man.
I mean, a different perspective of war.
Yeah.
There's a huge business side to war.
Yeah.
I mean, whether people want to admit it or not, I mean, there's a
is
lot of
big
money to
money.
be made in a war.
Yeah.
You know, if we go in and run through a country and in 6 months pacify it, I mean, there's no real profit there. However, if we can drag it out for 20 years for nation building,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, lots of money to be made.
So are you making a position that's what we were engaged in the last 20 years?
Well, that's,
Don't answer that question.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I know some people that will say yes to that.
Yeah. Well, I would, you know, as somebody that fought in it, you know, that's exactly what we were doing. And a lot of my opinions is, you know, we went into these areas and we should have been out in 3 years on both sides, right? We did our job. And, you know, everything after that was, you know, Sasso. And Sasso is a monumental failure.
Yeah, oh yeah, that and nation building. Yeah, we're not geared for it. And once again, it's a huge, it's a lot of profit to be made in it.
Yeah, that's it. Profit over lives.
Yeah, I mean,
grinding American troops.
But I mean, this is
ground.
not a new concept. Right. I mean,
no.
we had General Smedley Butler. He wrote a book about it back in 1935.
War's a racket.
Yeah, and everybody, you know, even today, you mentioned that like they all act surprised. I was like, no, it's nothing new.
Right.
So,
It's
but I mean,
when Ed started working for SOC, it was SOC SMG, I believe. And so it's Special Operations Consulting Security Management Group. And then Dane Zimmerman bought SOC, and then they changed the name to Securing Our Country.
Yeah, Securing Our Country,
So
and it was an
LLC. Stayed the same, but
Yeah.
then the one was the profit, and then the other one was the fact that we were working for a company that was run by SF guys.
Yeah.
And so they knew what it was like to have boots on the ground.
Sure.
And you start working for a corporation, and you're being dictated on how you do your operations, how you run your calls, how you save your money. What, you know, it came down to bullets and beans or whatever, you know. And they didn't have a clue of what we were dealing with, you know.
Right.
And so we had to adjust that way as well.
And once again, I mean, because nobody's in the black yet, I mean, you're not getting the support you need from corporate fiscally. And they actually sent
But that sounds fucking ridiculous to me, right? Like, just the thought of you saying it. We're not getting the support from corporate while we're out there providing private security, putting our lives on the line.
Yeah.
Shit, no lessons were learned either.
Right.
It fell on deaf ears. There was a time, I think, later on after, so I had left SOC and came back to them, but it was a different mission, same company, different T-shirt type of a deal. But they got rid of our expat drivers and started hiring local nationals. Now these fuckers couldn't even drive a taxi cab, and now they're driving a tactical vehicle. And you know, I have a guy with his arm out the window or one hand in the, you know, a 3-ton fucking truck.
Yeah.
And you're just going, Jesus Christ, dude. We went through so many LN drivers, but the whole idea was for the company to save money because they only had to pay them like $1,700 a year instead of, you know, what they were paying us. So
and as they're reaping in, you know, massive EBITDA.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Right. Because what these, you know, I can only imagine what the actual contractors are making as the owners, right, were making as the contractors were reaping in 6 figures at the beginning side.
I mean,
of it, right?
you say you're making like $15K a month at the corporate level. State Department or DOD is going to pay that company at least like another 70, 80 grand.
Oh, sure.
Because, and now some of it's going to go into they have to buy into your DBA. They have to buy your plane tickets back and forth. However, I mean, still a huge profit
Right.
for them.
Right.
I mean, we were at the minimum wage scale
Yeah.
compared to what they were making off of us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, vetting was another issue too, because when you have LNs, you have to rely on that SOC Afghanistan counterpart to do all of the vetting, because we didn't know these guys. They were bringing on shooters that had like one eyeball.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times when we got hit, they would duck down in the turrets. They wouldn't return fire. So we actually
And
had
these are Americans that they're
No.
just
Afghans.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Like, did they bring? Let me ask this question: like, how many ship bags were on your guys' career? Did you guys have a lot of ship bags?
I mean, once again, I mean, when the team started to expand, there was a time there when they were going through their first fighting season.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they went from hero to zero, and I mean, dudes were quite, and
That's been my biggest fear, because I'm, listen, I respect the hell out of it, right? But a lot of the contractors I've met, I'm like, bro.
They call it Bubba tier.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, and I mean, once again, that fighting season was a great equalizer. I mean, guys were like tapping out, like you knew something was off with the guy, that they were all talk. However, once they hit that first ambush, and it's not like an Iraq ambush where it's a blow an IED and maybe a couple pot shots, but you're driving through 10 kilometers, of dudes lighting you up.
Right.
They didn't like, I mean, some dudes just quit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was one way to thin out the herd.
Sure.
Fighting season was good for that.
Yeah. And there's a particular long or significant portion of the book that talks about the trauma of all of that. And the psychological trauma, the physical trauma, the loss of friends and teammates. Share a little bit about why you guys included that into the story.
Well, let's talk about the anniversary date.
Yeah, I mean, like today's the 12-year anniversary. We lost Matt and Chris, going from Organee to Skin, and then they were on their way back out of the valley, and they hit a IED, and it took them both. It killed them both. Yeah. So I mean, it's humbling when that happens. I mean, you think you're at the top of your game, and then all of a sudden, you
in an instant.
Yeah, you're either at the morgue IDing a friend, going through their pockets, or you're out there pulling them out of a vehicle when you're just looking at him like he's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And they're just coughing up all that. I mean, I remember with Perro coughing up all that blood, and I was like, he's gone. All you can do then is, sorry, bro, I'll catch you on the other side.
Yeah.
And then just stay on that focus.
I was able to put myself in his shoes with respect to what he was dealing with, because of the fact that the first time he got ambushed was at CAF. It was I think it was a mine strike.
Yeah, mine strike.
And, a couple of guys were injured in the back, but they were local nationals. So there's not that relationship, so to speak. I mean, they're guys on your crew, but you're not brothers.
Right. You haven't built.
I guess you could say you were brothers, but you were distant brothers or whatever. And nothing happened. The second time he got hit, he lost his interpreter, and a good friend of his had gotten injured really bad. That's a tough song.
Scott.
Holy shit. He actually came back after getting messed up pretty bad. So kudos to him. And then the last hit killed 5 guys, and he had to ID one of the guys that he had worked out with, like
48 hours prior,
something like that. And his body was so messed up. The only way you could tell was that through a tattoo.
Yeah,
on
all the
arm.
blast trauma has just swelled.
And so it's it kind of reaches a climax to the point where he realizes that he's got to get out of this game.
Yeah,
or
I was going
the
through
next guy on the slab.
Yeah, I was going through those pockets, and I was like, I got to get out, or I'm the next guy on this slab here.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's when I made it. So I wrote it out until I went on vacation, and we had to still run the roads. So being I was now like the director of operations. So I was like, all right, I'll go up in the lead gun truck, because it was the lead gun truck that was the last truck that got hit. That way, if I'm running the roads in the lead gun truck, nobody can complain.
Right.
And it's either, hey, you either do your job or go home.
Right. Yeah. That's.
So I did that up until I actually went on vacation, and then ended up reapplying for another program, the Panther program, which was the classified side. But this was right around the time that security contractor in Pakistan shot and killed those 2 dudes trying to mug him.
Yeah.
And Hillary Clinton, then Secretary of State, stopped all dip passports for the classified programs. So then I just bounced over to, stayed with SOC, bounced over to the static side in Iraq. That site was closing down. And then I just bounced back to Afghanistan, put on to a static site. I was like, I'm done with the roads.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's nothing more terrifying than being on a road that you know you're going to get hit on.
oh yeah, it's humbling too. I mean, you know, the first time.
But I get a little pucker right now just thinking about it.
Oh,
Yeah.
gee, we talked about how many times we ran over culverts that didn't go off.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like and they were every 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
And I would, my ass would go like, I would pucker up really bad, and then we'd pass by, and here comes another one.
Yeah. I survived no less than 3 directs, and I'll tell you, that shit, I don't ever want to.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, your heart rate goes through the roof.
Right,
You get that shot of adrenaline.
Yeah. First thing, check your balls. All right, we're good. Promoting boys, we're good. Get on it. So like now, with it all said and done, and the smoke is settled, years later, are you guys? How are you guys coping with the combat of it all, and all the circumstances?
I think writing the book helped out a lot.
Yeah.
Putting pen to paper, that was like really beneficial. That and plus, I do a lot of volunteer work at the Veterans Ranch in Central Oregon, and it's a place where veterans hang out.
Yeah.
It's an actual working ranch. And, you know, we all, you know, you don't have to worry about how you talk there.
Right.
You know, you get to hang out with other veterans, guys that have been blown up, and, you know, guys that have been in fights, guys that have lost friends. And, you know, we all just get to hang out.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's nice. So I think between that, putting pen to paper, and then just keeping busy too. You know, I like being a fitness trainer, and I like doing my job. I mean, I work at 9 Round as a trainer there, and my bosses are awesome there. So I like, like I said, and I keep busy with those type of activities.
Yeah.
I know it's a little different for me. Because I was more engaged in the writing portion of it, and I, you know, it brought back memories, and then again some of the stuff that he had to go through, and I was just going, Jesus Christ, man! I when I left the contract, I got replaced by a guy, John Pickett, that was his medic, you know, and there would be times when I said, man, that should have been me, or that could have been me, or any. They had a RPG go off on this guy's truck that didn't detonate, and he saw it coming. Right, it was just like skipped off the side of the truck and blew up behind him, and I was just going, holy crap! Yeah, and so I emotionally, it wasn't really bothering me. It just, you know, kind of stirred up those memories. But you know, you just keep pushing on. You know, we don't want to forget about the guys that lost their lives. We had 10 guys in 3 years, KIA.
Yeah.
And we got to do something to let other people know what they went through. We've got to honor them. We've got to think about their families, and we want to pay tribute to the work that they did, because it was selfless sacrifice.
So what other goals do you guys have in mind with the book?
The big one is just to get the story out there. That was always been the biggie right there. Get the story out there. Let people understand what, you know, wasn't, what went on over there outside of the military realm.
Yeah.
You know, you had civilians supporting the military, and, but they didn't have that full on military support.
Right.
Like an air support, fire support. You know, we didn't roll like Big Army with 50 cals.
Right.
Oh man,
Yeah.
and MRAP.
Life gets real small when you don't have all that ass behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to try to get a commemorative stamp made through the United States Postal Service, a Pony Express stamp. I know 511 had one in a patch that they made, and I was going, "That's our logo. What the hell's going on?"
Yeah.
And I call the regional director. I go, "Hey, that's our stuff, man. Can we get it back?" And it's not trademarked to you guys.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, the name of the book was originally the Pony Express, but there's another group that has a trademark on it, so we changed it to Postcards Through Hell, which turned out to be a better title, anyways.
Yeah.
But I want to have something to commemorate them lifetime.
Yeah.
You know, we just got an offer the other day to do a documentary. That wasn't something that we foresaw, but now that it's on the table. We're looking heavily into that.
Yeah, that'd be fascinating.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's getting that peek behind the curtain, right? Of what contracting is really like, right? I think we have a lot of people in our community, and probably a lot that are watching that, have a basic understanding, of, Triple Canopy, Black Hawk, all the other, or Blackwater, and all the, the ones that were, really popular at the time, right? But that's the superficial side of it all, right? And having information out there and these types of stories, I think, are bridging that gap to tell that there's a much larger story to the contract work that was being done in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Something simple as making sure the mail was getting delivered on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how it got there. I was just happy that it did.
You had asked earlier about what our readers expect to get out of the book, and there's a huge historical perspective as well. We ran parallel to a lot of other events that occurred. Coast was one where the CIA guys got killed. We were there a run earlier where they wouldn't let us on the base. We had to drop our cargo on the outside of the base, and even though our team leader had a clearance, they wouldn't allow any of our trucks on board. And then all of a sudden, they let some triple agent on board, and boom, there's a bunch of CIA guys gone, and we were just there. What the hell? The Four Horsemen, that was an Afghan convoy company that ran like 500 trucks at a time. It was like herding cats. Yeah. But we tried to affiliate ourselves with them because they were really heavily armed. And if we had agreed, if something happened to them, we could provide at least some medical support. If we got hit, then they could provide overwhelming force. They had RPG-5s, RPG-7s, Dishkas.
Were these handshake deals that are being made?
Pretty much.
Handshake deals.
Yeah, we did it out in the street, and there was nothing written. There was no memorandum of agreement. It was just like, hey, dude, you know who we are. We know who you are.
Right.
If shit goes to hell in a handbasket, man, we're going to help you out.
Yeah.
And their team leaders pretty much agreed the same thing, but there's interesting articles about what happened with them. We had the Kill Team. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie or the documentary. We actually delivered mail to that place at that time. That shit was going on.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know it at the time, but
sure.
We had in Herat, the NATO agreement with the Italians where they were paying the Taliban not to hit them. And we were running right next to these guys. If not going to hit the Italians, they're going to hit us. Once the money stopped, the Italians started getting hit again. It's just like, wow. All that stuff's in
tithing. They didn't pay the tithing.
Yeah. That's all in there as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, there's one particular story that I wanted to ask you guys about that was, I thought, a little bit funny, and I want to hear more about it because I'm a Coke guy.
Oh,
so there's Coke and Pepsi land.
Coke versus Pepsi.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the original war between Coke and Pepsi was Coca-Cola was there first. They were predominantly in Kabul, and they marketed all of their product in all of these larger cities. So Jalalabad, Kandahar, Kabul.
Now, this was recently, within the last 20 years, or they've been marketing there for a while?
I don't know when Coke came to fruition in Afghanistan, but it was, I think, sometime around 1992.
Really? I would have took them as Fanta people.
there were a lot of off-brand stuff that was for sale up there as well. Yeah. But so Pepsi came in and they tried to dominate the market. And what happened with them was they were had no choice but to go to areas that in the smaller villages or on main routes and things of that nature. But we never got hit in Pepsi country. We always got hit in Taliban. Wherever you saw a Coke logo or something like that,
really, it
was on. So if we were driving, that was like part of our spidey senses. There's a Coke sign. Holy shit! You're looking around. When you're in Pepsi country, you kind of just let your guard down a little bit less, or take a little break, or whatever, because you knew that nothing was going to really happen there. So
I do get a sense of pacifism from the Pepsi logo. It sounds violent.
It's the red, white, and blue, man. We just assumed that the Taliban drank Coke. So I got a shit ton of pictures of Coke and Pepsi. I thought it was so weird how that was the case, and then you started thinking about it, and I kind of researched a little bit about it, and we put that into the book.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, the book comes out October 21st.
Yes.
Where will people be able to find it?
Amazon and Barnes and Noble right now.
Good little Barnes and Nobles, huh?
Yeah, Kindle will have an electronic
Yeah,
version.
Kindle.
All right.
And then we have a website, www.postcardsthroughhell.com, where you can buy the book through us, but that's more personalized.
Yeah.
Where, if you want to buy a book from Amazon and then you want it to be signed, then you got to send it to us. We got to sign it. They got to send it back. But if you want something signed or personalized, you can order it through our website and we'll go ahead and sign it for you.
That's great. That's a nice little touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice little touch. Absolutely. What is the website where people will be able to find you?
Postcards Through Hell?
Yeah, postcardsthroughhell.com.
All right. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Postcardsthroughhell.com. October 21st is when the book drops. I'm excited to read it. Having sit down with you gentlemen, I've gotten a little bit more of insight on the contracting and the all the efforts of the last 20 years, the nuances, right?
Yeah.
It's been great. I want to say thank you for sharing the story with us and joining us today with on American Grit. And look to have you guys back again here in the future. We'll talk about the next steps, maybe the documentary or something even bigger.
Yeah.
So until then, any last words you want to leave with the listeners?
It's all about the guys that made the ultimate sacrifice. Nobody knows about it, and we want to make sure everybody knows.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It's not about book sales. It's not about kudos. It's more about what they gave and some of the stuff they went through, and we want to honor them. We want to honor their families.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. These here we are. It's the war is over, and the families are still destroyed, and we're still dealing with it, and it's our responsibility, I think, and I feel, to make sure that we continue to tell those stories. All
that way they're still honored.
Yeah, they're still honored, and as long as we speak their name, they're never forgotten.
Yeah,
right. That's the most important part.
Thank you.
So I think what you guys are doing is absolutely perfect in terms of telling the story. More importantly, sharing little tidbits of some of these men that have died in service for the country, right? And that's what it was. So postcardsthroughhell.com, October 21st. You can check it out on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. I love the smell of Barnes and Nobles.
It smells like victory.
It smells like, it's one of those great places. It's not like walking into a library. That's a little bit more dusty and old, but
like
Barnes
going into
Nobles.
Pepsi country.
There you go. All right, guys. Until next time, this is American Grit with Tim Jensen, with Alan and Ed, the gentlemen and writers of Postcards Through Hell. Check them out, read their book, and leave them a great review. Until next time.
5 stars.
5 stars, baby. We'll see you again soon.